Aqui é a MBT Office 5522, Saquarema City, Federative Unit, Rio de Janeiro, National State, Brazil. We will continue with our movement. We put a clips to saying that this, is kind of a contribution humble by business. Despite we will move on, but my communication maybe is looking trouble. So let's do a share. Do not consider support by areas that never had been supported this effort. Of course, it's the rational expectation of economic agents. We can, expect something different by areas that never show something different. For instance, if you are the country of the future, you will kind of have this as something that you consider a attribute of things you do. We will have our risk analysis and at the security plan, considering the industrial portfolio offered by NATO as a self-defense model and suffering so much aggressions that we put ourselves as an industrial portfolio offered to NATO. Despite our advices and warnings, the aggressions and unfair treatment had the continuity, of course, that these seemed had the kickoff against an individual and then will impact the spectral perception of an individual, which can be anyone, at the consumed as a diffuse area and may be affecting our interest in health quality as the good living, the welfare state, mental health for our and health for our mind, body, and soul. Of course, that this will impact the kind of decisions that we have, and some decisions, especially associated with drug dependence, corruption, and crimes or any other engineer that put down the autonomy and the independence to have a decision. Indeed, we are kind of having a structure with based on the Manichaeism as mankind or individuals without individual perception of things to guide the our mankind to what we're living, a pandemic even based on a disease with curative support, with a lot of distortion, fraud, impossible and unable to have the transparency and accountability. This as a basic need health and by inference considering the American just will happen or can happen in other areas as essential needs like food, drugs, and the administration of the income and ways to achieve the productive result. And of course, if we had the disruptive even then the tax stimulus, the productive system has a vulnerability and a support from outside centering interest in obtaining this advantage as an autonomous gain. And this kind of stimulus has a signature coming from public budget with specific hands on it in global scale. We will observe that our model was had the kickoff like this. We had the frontier of possibilities, Russia considering that they have very limited possibilities to trade things, have Ukraine with a large possibility and possible things to be traded. And instead of have the invasion, Russia can offer the military protection and support if the Ukraine accept and deserve. Then the Ukraine will set a preference to trade things with Russia and always with better conditions. But sometimes Ukraine can offer everything, and we will have the extended field as frontier of possibility by the capitalism system, which has a productive system that had a disruptive moment and now can, recover the breath and keep the pace as things made. And of course, that this kind of thing on present time has a pandemic event as risk, which is a system organized by threats, risk, and unfair treatment, and can be at the food, at drugs, and all essential needs, considering the misusage of public departments to obtain advantage and do this by corruption and have the continued by nepotism, and you do not respect civil rights, guarantees basic rights despite literally written in areas with constitution, and you do this from public department, make an entrance at the house as analogical or by the digital access of social network and a lot of things. If you have an industrial portfolio research at this, private living, you committed industrial crime. And you will not accept, you will keep the continuity and do things as an illegal and abusive way on communication by clandestine models, methods, and then you are kind of from present time at the warfare, threaten the entire mankind by aggressions at the fused area of interest, which put ourselves very concerned and predicting the same behavior despite different intensity or density by Monte Carlo model as genocide. And we set numbers here, Russia will offer the military protection and the logistics system, considering the analysis of supply chain about everything that got supplied on Russia by the Ukraine and the extended area as capitalism. We will have at least three report or statement offered maybe to the NATO, to the KGB, to the serious area as intelligence around the globe to have the protection and stability at the macro environment, and we will have the first one by Russia, the second by Ukraine and companies, and the other companies on the capitalism, and we can have the NATO oversight of these, or having the cross-cut, and we had this method at the Security Forum. We observe that this model as frontier of possibility indeed is the normal distribution as Gauss curve. We will have one side of the curve, and here, for instance, the positive one. Here we have the other side of the curve as a negative one. It's the same idea, despite not represented by our regular sense, but an holographic perception of things indeed will help ourselves to understand that we are kind of having the Gauss curve as distribution. The complementarity of both will set an area of interest by equal values distributed with kind of no internal perception if it's positive or negative. The combination of both will set to zero, which is the area as trading or interest, and at the Gauss curve, which is this area here with the zero. Then we have the second area as perception, which will be something that we will have like this. The second model or the deeper level, I'd say, or something that will kind of be associated with the UK as Ukraine. And this integration and trust indeed will set kind of this perception as level. Can you get? That is the density of the model, and this will be represented by the linear notation, which is the quadrant tracer. And then we are having our model as Z, which is the capitalism and the free will, the autonomy, everything you do not respect in Brazil, despite it's the premise of the Brazilian society, Western civilization, global, and mankind, and America as stability, considering the bless of freedom. You will have an abusive order from, for instance, the Supreme Court to shut an account at the Twitter or social media or do abusive procedure will not tax you, and you are amazing. Then it's like this. Of course, that a council of peers or a court, they are all equally guilty. This is on our Constitution, Article 37. They must be under the review considering the gains, the property evaluation, and understand if has maybe that KPI as CGT multi index for control and observation of variables individualized at that segment. The segment is indeed the public or could be the corporate by drug use. The continuity of dependence as deeper level will put you at the tax evasion and illegal and clandestine ways to obtain and take advantage of all things by your property evaluation unable to be presented, like the pandemic event you all at this area. The crosscut, indeed, we will observe that is this situation here and goes like this. We put a sequence and observe that was very similar to a logical sequence, and indeed the supply chain is like this. You have the authorization, you have the distribution, you have the logistics as the military, sequential logic as the etymology, the etymology of the word. Then we will check that we will have kind of the Russia 1, the Ukraine 2, you know, and the crosscut, considering the extended area and the model as you could have as epsilon, z as estimative, and x, which is the variable. And then this idea is the supply and demand, considering the Jean-Baptiste Say theory, France. We will have this area here, which is highlighted, as you can observe, like the most promiscuous area. We could observe this before, by the Venn diagram, considering the government, the state, and the society. This chart and board is at the Rio de Janeiro city and was like this. If it's a square or if it's a circle inside a square, it's not something else. The most promiscuous area that we got highlighted, and we did this by our Constitution, Article 5, and 61, 41, we have a lot of things there. This area here is this area here, which will be the crossed area as icon Z that now is here. And then we will check that indeed we had the values, and you can take a look at the board. First of all, understand that the machine learning will do the first preliminary crosscut by areas, for instance, the government or your company, the criminal organization, or mafia groups that are for real as company, as criminal groups, or sometimes we fail inside as corruption. And considering only the regular area, this area will kind of be the field of concern by the corruption that can put you by fusification as a criminal inside a regular area with the interest and intention like this. The comparative measurement 5521, 5522, frequency 55, continued by each state, considering the seats that you have. We have 27 states, 5,000 seats, a single integrated failure at the Brazilian state, evidenced and proven, since we could get this by fake data on criminal records, which is the subsidiary level of information, and you do this modification by payments on public department, despite you do not assume you do. And we said that we will use the international procedure against your unfair treatment and threats against mankind. We are doing this. Now we are kind of, asking the Russia to be on it. And then we will check that these kind of things we could observe at the National Treasury, because we will have the clusterization as an integrated failure system as a big data for criminal purpose. Subsidiarily are equally failed systemic crimes audited evidenced by the Article 174 of the Brazilian Constitution. You are unable to present this kind of transparency, and the Article 72, you need the protection of public records inside the public department, because you do the modification of data and it is a crime on 313A and B of our criminal law. And if you have an abusive procedure, the continuity of this is associated with this crime, but you will not be sent to jail in Brazil, except when you committed this kind of aggression in an area under international interest purpose, even by an interference. Did you commit this kind of industrial crime, criminal offender? We have our financial system as public records equally with fake data payments and a lot of things. 359A up to age plus 360 of the criminal law combined with the silence on 13 if goes on public department as public finance considering the integrated failure on 74 with distribution geopolitical by the 23 item 1 you are qualified as organized crime. Law 12,850, Article 1, 2, and 3. I'm sorry, but you must be sent to jail. You must be dismissed, destituted, and sent to jail. In America, you committed an international crime. And we have the budget, the social records, the health information, the central bank, and the treasury as secretary of the public department office have this information, two types of information, regular and criminal. And of course that you are unable to do this, you got the point because we made a chart. It's not something that you must read, only observe the chart. Then we will have this cross-cut by values, and we will try to understand that the situation on present time is positive one, our global system. Negative one, pandemic events unable to have transparency. Trending to 0 as criminal intent, which is the organized crime in global scale, considering the top-down corruption, who is having or consider have the speech as a global jurisdiction, considering all system of justice failure. One question. Second, who is having the idea as global taxation, considering the misuse of tax system and departments all around the globe at the pandemic era? A, 1 and 2, or A and 1, or A, capital letter, A, small letter. Cross-cut of to both. We consider that we could have a similar model as top-down corruption in global scale by the not proper use of jurisdiction by the continuity of have this because they had a long life chair and we have the continuity of scams, they know everything and keep the big mouth shut. Plus the misuse of financial records, resources, and economic values, trending to the evaluation 0, as it could prove here, which is the deeper level as the trending negative one, by the pandemic event as criminal systemic crime organized and not entirely consolidated. And we are offering revolts, procedure, and a lot of things case solved since 2020 about the Blind Association, which is your position, criminal offenders association. You can't be a victim if you are part of the scam. Compensation 33 trillion, paper rolling, database Sigma, NATO, policy of red, seizure of resource as part of illegal result and criminal result, considering the food and other things. Indeed, there has no guarantees as outlaw. If you have, for instance, the lab producing medical pills to put the mankind down, you can be destroyed. And goes like this. Have a nice Saturday.